So guillotines. I actually think this is probably the most underutilized move in Jiu-Jitsu, and it's a you can relax. It's one of those moves that like it's especially relevant like right now. I don't know how close you guys follow sort of the sport part of Jiu-Jitsu, but there's always this big debate on whether or not you should pull or not, whether or not you should work on your wrestling, whether or not you should pull guard, whether if you pull guard all the time if you're a sissy. Like there's just that giant discussion. I think it's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. But with takedowns do require a certain amount of athleticism. They do require a certain amount of explosion, and at a certain point, a certain age, a certain belt level, you may not everybody's going to have great wrestling. It just is what it is, right? Not everybody's going to have great takedowns, but everybody can have a great guillotine. And if takedowns are not your game, you should work on and develop your guillotine, right? Because that means that if anybody's going to shoot in and get a hold of you and take you down, if you have a dangerous guillotine, that kind of evens the playing field a little bit, right? I don't have great wrestling, but man, if you shoot in and get a hold of me, you're going to have a problem with your head, right? That's kind of the strategy with having a really good guillotine. Guillotines are a little bit like cross chokes. They're super underrated because I think a lot of people feel like they're so basic, there's no way that's going to work on somebody that's good. Right? And so we kind of just stick that in our wallet and forget about it and don't use it that much, and that's really not the case. It's not the case with cross chokes either, right? So what we're going to work on today is sort of a little bit of a different mechanic to finishing the guillotine, okay? And we'll probably have time for two techniques. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you kind of the way I like to finish my guillotines. I think it makes it a little bit easier to finish, okay? And then we're going to work on the most important part of the guillotine, which is how to set it up. Okay, that actually is more important. I don't care what grip you use, right? So if you have a specific grip that you like, I'm not dogmatic about it. You can use whatever grip you want. I'm going to show you the one I use, and then you can play with it and see what you think. So just go ahead and have to be on your elbows and knees here for me for just a second. So what I want you to think about, I actually prefer to do an arm in guillotine. Okay, so I prefer instead of being just around the head, I want to be around the head on one side and around the arm on the other. The reason being is it's much, much harder to escape. So if I'm around the head on this side, I'm around the arm on this side, as opposed to being in front of the arm, okay? It's much, much easier for him to escape a non-arm in guillotine. That is a tighter choke, but it's way easier to get out of, right? So we have to find a way, how can we make the arm in guillotine work? And there's a bunch of different ways. What I want you guys to think about when you're doing this, are any of you kind of familiar with how an Aoki lock works on an ankle lock? Kind of, maybe? If you're not,
I've taught it like once upstairs, okay. Maybe twice.
That's fine. So I want you to think about, maybe next time we'll do Aoki lock.
We are glaringly deficient in Aoki locks.
No, it's okay. It's totally fine. So I want you to think about, this will actually help your Aoki locks the next time he teaches it. This is going to function sort of like an Aoki lock, right? So what I'm going to do here, actually let's stand up. Let's do this because it'll be a little bit easier for me to show it from standing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over his head, and I like to stop my thumb right up on top of his jugular, or I'm sorry, not jugular, his carotid artery right here, right? So I'm not going all the way through. Okay, I'm not going all the way through. I'm going to stop right on the side of his neck, okay, just with my wrist, okay? Now this arm is going to go over his arm in front of his body, and I'm going to bring it all the way across and grab my own wrist. So it looks very shallow. In fact, it kind of looks like his head will just pop right out of there. That's totally fine, right? Totally fine. That's the grip I want you to get, okay, here. You should be able to see the back of your partner's hairline. If you can't, you've gone in a little bit too deep. On this particular choke, we actually don't want to be super deep, not the way I like to do it, okay? So I want to be able to see the back of my partner's head, back of my partner's hairline. Once I get here, I'm going to close my elbow, all right? I'm going to close my elbow. As I finish the choke, now what I'm doing is I'm closing my elbow, and I'm bringing the hand across my belly and bringing the other elbow up nice and high, almost like you're rocking a baby. Okay, that's the idea. Rocking the baby. Just a baby you're not fond of because you're choking it, right? So we're bringing it across. Boom. And what that will do is that allows me, if you watch how it turns his head, when I do this from guard, it'll make more sense. It allows me to bring his chin sideways towards me. And it creates a really bad angle on his neck. This is a little bit of a choke, a little bit of a neck crank. The cool part is, Neck cranks are typically not legal in gi, but they can't differentiate a crank from a choke from this position. So you can get away with it either way. That's the cool part. It's kind of legal cheating, right? So we go here, right? So if I do this from the ground, let's go to our knees. I'm gonna grab, right? I put it on the side of the neck. I go over, let's just bring your arm to the outside. I go over the arm, I come through and grab my own wrist. Now, what I'm gonna do is, the most important part of your guillotine as you pull is as I'm sitting to guard, and we're gonna do this version where we sit and we bring our shin across the body and our leg across the back. We're not gonna go to closed guard. We're just gonna do this one, okay? 3/4 guard. What's super important as I'm doing this choke is that I'm laying all my weight on his head as we go, okay? So as I'm sitting to guard, it's literally like all of my body weight goes on his neck. All right, so it's here. As I pull from right now, it's like I'm laying on his head. Closing my elbow, I'm pulling my hands to my chest, all my weight, and I hook. Now this leg goes over the back. And now to finish, all we're doing is we're just rocking the baby and squeezing. Just like that to finish. It's a very, very weird feeling choke. It doesn't feel like a normal guillotine. Okay? Is that working more of a choke or more of a crank or a little of both?
I feel the choke.
Cool. Perfect. That's what we want. All right? So, the important part with this is it avoids the one grip I don't like, which is the chin strap, which is where guys go through. There's nothing wrong with this. Okay? There's a million people on the planet that are great at this. The reason I don't like it, the second you grab a guy's chin, they immediately know you're after their neck. They immediately feel threatened. Their hands immediately go to their neck, right? And it's hard to stop. If I'm kind of over here, do you feel like any threat on your neck at all right now?
No.
None. Okay? None. If I'm doing this, now he's worried. Now his hands come into fight, right? Not wrong. It's just going to make life harder on you, okay, at the end of the day. So we put the side of the fist on the neck. We go over the arm, across, and we find our own wrist. So just like that. Okay? Here. Now here's the trick. As I sit to guard, my right, whatever arm is over the neck, that same side shin makes a frame across his waistline. My other leg goes over his back. The most important parts is I'm closing my elbow, and as I'm pulling guard, all of my weight is laying on his head, right? All of it, or otherwise the choke's not gonna work. So as I sit, I lay. Almost like he's gonna fall over. And we'll work on what happens if he does, right? So we hook, this goes over the back, and now to finish, we're just rocking the baby and squeezing, right? Just like that. Okay? Let's try that a couple of times, see how you guys feel about it, and then we're gonna work on how to set it up, okay? If you feel like you're having a problem, just let me know and we'll make it work, okay? All right, let's give it a shot.